Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the UKV as we do head now into the Christmas period, where for the majority it's going to be pretty average with quite unsettled conditions, a lot of showers, and into next week through sort of between Boxing Day and New Year's Day it could be really quite unsettled and stormy perhaps, with winds really gusting, perhaps later next working week. So yeah, it could be really quite horrible next week as this westerly flow does take over. As we said in yesterday's video, it all linked to the cold spell in North America at the moment, powering the jet stream, allowing big low pressure systems to develop. Again, we're still sort of 5 to 7 days away from seeing the full effects from that, so we still have some uncertainty in the exact tracks of low pressure systems and their intensities. So at this stage we'll just be able to have a look at the general pattern. But I'm sure within the next few days we'll start to see little features crop up as quite intense low pressure systems, and we could even be seeing named storms next week. So we'll have to see how that does develop, but we'll run through the UKV, look at the weather over the next 5 days, the precipitation and the temperature. As I said, it's generally going to be around average for most, maybe more on the side of slightly above average in the south, and probably below average more across Scotland as well, where there could be some winteriness, and we do have a snow and ice warning issued for Boxing Day and the 27th for wintry showers. Again, nothing too unusual for this time of year, but nevertheless it is a snow and ice warning. And then we'll have a look at the longer range, look at that big westerly flow next week, which does look likely to dominate through to the end of the year. So, do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. So if you start on the live radar, you can see a big weather front spread through this morning for many areas in the south, and it's now pouring across parts of northern England, parts of North Wales, Northern Ireland, and now heading into Scotland. Recording this around 3:30, so this is the positioning of the weather front, and it's just going to head northwards and eastwards tonight, and you can see a bit of snow over the Scottish hills, and that will continue this evening with this weather front bumping into there. We could see significant snow over the highest ground. Again, nothing unusual for this time of year. Elsewhere, it's just been a showery outlook further southwards. A lot of these blustery showers moving through, big heavy shower moving through London, down in towards Exeter and Plymouth, Torquay, and across parts of Wales, the Midlands, just all these blustery showers moving in from the west. You can see the big size of this system with its weather fronts heading out into Europe as well, and this is just the general theme over the course of the next week, with a lot of westerly winds, with a lot of these big weather fronts pushing in. So there's going to be big bouts of heavy rain over the course of the next week, and it's just going to be about dodging those bouts of rain and the stronger winds that are likely to accompany it, especially next week. Could be seeing gusts of 60-70 miles per hour at this stage, and that could pep up and be even higher if we do see some of these small little low pressure systems, daughter lows developing within the main flow, which could cause issues and could even be named, as I said, next week. Now, I've put on the temperatures, as I said, around 3:30. Temperatures are not particularly exceptional today, but still probably slightly milder than average in the south, but cold across Scotland. That's the theme probably for the next few days. As I said, generally average for most, but above average in the far south and below average in the far north. And you can see that's well emphasised here. This is the general theme over the next few days. So around 8 to 10 degrees for most in the south over the course of the next 3 to 5 days, and more around the low single digits, if not towards freezing in Scotland. Again, not too unusual for this time of year, just generally slightly below average, but cold enough to produce snow. As I said, snow and ice warning that we'll have a look at in a minute for Boxing Day and the 27th. Now, the reason why, as I said, we've got this big powerful jet stream is if you look out to North America, you can see that cold air has enveloped most of the United States at the moment. You can see freezing temperatures all the way down into Mexico and down towards the Gulf of Mexico, and the weather front is making its way into Florida and even areas like Orlando, which traditionally are pretty much humid all year round. Could be seeing temperatures in the day mid-single digits, and overnight temperatures dropping down towards freezing in inland areas. So parts of Florida are going to be colder than the UK, or most of the UK this week. And you can see how these freezing cold temperatures, minus 30, minus sort of 35 to 40 degrees, quite widely here, are just going to continue to dominate. And you can see there is a winter storm in the northeast. Again, if we put on the live radar, a winter storm in the northeast, big low pressure system. And this is just going to power the jet stream and throw a lot of weather systems our way into next week. Now, if we do go to the weather warnings, we'll have a look at the snow and ice warning for Sunday, Monday. So, snow and ice warning is actually issued on Christmas Day. I said it was for 26, 27. It's actually for late Christmas Day into Boxing Day. And there could still be wintry hazards into Tuesday, but there's no warning issued yet, so could change. But again, this is why we have said the last few days there's potential for a white Christmas, as those showers will be pushing in. And if we do look at the details for this, you can see 1 to 3 centimetres are possible, with 5 to 10 centimetres over the hills, and maybe more snow through Monday as well over the higher ground. Again, high likelihood, lower end of the impact, and again, mainly over the higher ground. Now, if you could look at the UKV and have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days, you can see how we have that weather band moving in today. As it spreads northwards, could turn to snow over the course of this evening in many areas of Scotland, especially over the higher ground, but elsewhere it will mainly be rain, and areas in the south will see some showers before it actually dissipates away, and we see mainly dry weather. Through into Christmas Eve, again, not too wet for many in central and eastern areas. For the west, Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales and South West England, will be plenty of heavy, blustery showers, pushing in again wintry over the higher ground of Scotland. As we head into the big day, Christmas Day, you can see many areas are going to be showery. Going to wake up with some heavy precipitation bands moving in at times, but it's not going to be complete washout. Could be some more heavy persistent rain in the evening in the far southeast. For most areas, it's just a showery day, on and off precipitation. So if you want to get out for a Christmas walk, it will be all about dodging the showers. The further eastwards you are, the more likely you are to stay away from the showers, but you can see here they are moving inland quite widely, and there could be some real heavy rain in the southeast through the evening, and in the north and the west, more heavy showers pushing in, turning more to snow through the evening and into the 26th, Boxing Day. Most showers in the north and west having a wintry flavour to it, mainly over the higher ground for any accumulations, but to low-lying areas could see some wintriness. So for late Christmas Day, we could see quite a bit of snow actually in the north and west, falling snow that is, in the form of showers. So many areas could see a bit of a white Christmas there, official white Christmas, and I think it's pretty much guaranteed that the UK as a whole will see a white Christmas, i.e. within the UK there will be snow falling on Christmas Day somewhere. So yeah, white Christmas looks very likely for the UK, almost pretty much 100% looking at this, and quite likely in many northern and western areas on an individual basis. As we head through Boxing Day, you can see to the 27th, the big weather front pushing in, that's pushing all that cold air away, and then through the 27th, the 28th, and then of course into the 29th and 30th, all the way up through to the new year, it does look likely to see big, heavy bouts of precipitation moving in from the west. You look at the pressure charts, strong westerly flow, and these low pressure systems getting embedded in it, and these could get really deep and could produce very, very significant storms. Look at the wind gusts. Again, nothing too ridiculous cropping up at the moment, but looking likely 30, 40, maybe 50, 60 mile per hour gusts at times. And again, some of these local low pressure systems moving in, little daughter lows could develop into next week, and that could give very stormy conditions and maybe even named storms. And we'll have a look at the long range models to see what they're producing in a minute. Now, if you go over to the 2 metre temperatures, you can see over the course of this afternoon, widely temperatures in the north around the mid to low single digits. Further southwards, sort of 10, 11 degrees, and there's sort of a gradient between that, of maybe mid to high single digits for the Midlands. But again, another generally average day, slightly above average in the south, slightly below average in the north. As we head through to Christmas Eve is going to be pretty much another average day, really. Slightly above average in the far south, slightly below average in the far north, but for many areas it's sort of 5 to 10 degrees. And as we head into Christmas Day, most will actually wake up to quite a mild Christmas morning. Maybe a bit of a frost across the far north of Scotland over the higher ground, but most areas it's going to be pretty mild, 6 or 7 degrees to wake up on Christmas Day. And through to the afternoon, you can see many areas are, again, around average, that sort of 6 to 8 degree mark for northern areas, maybe colder across Scotland, maybe 8 to 10 degree mark across the far south. As we head through the evening, it will be turning colder for all. Many areas in the north and west will see a frost into Boxing Day, and even areas into the southeast could get down to maybe 2 or 3 degrees overnight. For the Boxing Day, the temperature in the day is actually quite cold, 3 to 5 degrees, a proper polar maritime air mass moving in, sort of Arctic air flooding in, but again, it's only lasting really a day, and many areas, as I said, will be around that 3 to 5 degree mark. The far southwest maybe holding on to around 5 or 6. So a colder, more seasonal Boxing Day with wintry showers in the north and west. But it's not going to last much at all. Maybe a slight frost overnight on Boxing Day before the milder air does push in. And for many on the 27th, back to generally average, will be slightly above average in the south, 8 to 10 degrees colder in Scotland. And that just continues through the rest of next week. There will be oscillating air masses. At times it will be cooler than average. Other times it will be milder than average as we see weather fronts push in. But as I said, the main theme for next week is that it's going to be very unsettled, potentially quite stormy as well, all being powered by that very strong jet stream exiting North America. Now, if you do look at the GFS and see what that's showing over the course of the next few weeks, again, you can see a bit of a westerly flow at the moment. Cold air is trying to flood out of the Arctic, and that's why we're going to see slightly colder air through Boxing Day. However, westerly winds take back over, and you can see all these blues appearing, especially late next week for these lows flooding in, and there could be really intense low pressure there. You can see a very localised low pressure system there across the far south, and that could spin up and give very, very strong winds. Again, look at the wind gusts there, 120 kilometre hour wind gusts within that. Again, that's potentially 80 mile per hour or 70, 80 mile per hour wind gusts. So again, could be a named storm if we see this come off, but again, each run has got a slightly different outcome for later next week. Beyond that, it stays pretty unsettled, but actually higher pressure starts to build over Europe, which could mean the far south and east does go slightly drier. But this is not a good sign if you want anything colder or anything really around average. This is very much a unsettled in the north and west, slightly dry in the south and east, but very mild for all, with that wind direction coming from the southwest from the Azores to start the New Year. So this being incredibly mild, well above average, for eventually actually it tilts more northwesterly again, turning slightly cooler and more unsettled. So generally a westerly flow, sort of moving between northwesterlies and southwesterlies, but again, nothing particularly cold, generally average to above average. And if we see that pressure rise over Central and Southern Europe, it could mean we can actually go really quite mild or warm to start the new year. Again, it's one run, so we'll have to see what the others are showing. If we do look at the GM, see how that does compare. Again, a westerly flow at the moment, staying generally very unsettled next week with these small lows developing that could really spin up and give us a named storm. And then that pressure rises across Europe for the start of the new year. And look at the upper air temperatures, wafting up from the south, incredibly mild. It's actually quite cold across Scotland for areas in the south and east, turning drier. Very mild air pushing in. Again, perhaps 4 to 6 degrees above average. Very, very warm in Central and Southeastern Europe with this big high pressure moving in as the cold air does get locked up more in the Arctic. If we look at the Eastern WF, see how that does compare. Again, cold air coming in through Boxing Day, then going very unsettled and potentially stormy next week. And then eventually, as I said, towards day 10, that higher pressure is starting to build towards Europe. Again, look at the upper air temperatures, very warm there. Perhaps more of a slight easterly tilt of this high pressure. You can see slightly cooler air is trying to build in from the west. So this is pushing us slightly more on the cooler end here, especially for northern and western areas, but still generally under a very similar flow. Again, things can change, but the scenario here is very unsettled towards the end of this month. And then to start the new year, higher pressure building over Europe could develop a very warm, mild, southerly wind, which could, as I said, bring temperatures maybe into the low teens, maybe even mid-teens possible in some areas. Could be incredibly mild indeed. Now, if you finish the video, but just have a look at the ensemble members, the latest GFS, you can see how it's generally up and down over the course of the next week. And then as we start January, it turns slightly drier for the south and the east, but above average, maybe 2 or 3 degrees above average. The GFS operational run there, trying to build 10 degree isotherm for a time. Bit of an outlier on the warmer end, but majority more just a couple degrees above average. But regardless, it looks generally drier in the south and the east and well above average. Very, very mild and warm, perhaps, to start the new year. Again, you can see it's emphasised by looking at the dew points. In the longer term, nothing close towards freezing at all from the most, which again is an indication of a southerly airflow. or at least nothing originating from the poles at all. And again, the 2 metre temperature trending more towards sort of 10-degree highs as we head into January. Very, very mild. Of course, December average temperatures are milder than January. So yes, 10 degrees in December is slightly above average, but 10 degrees in January is quite mild. It's not 1 or 2 degrees above average, it's more like 3 or 4 degrees above average. And again, if we finish the East with the East MWF ensemble members, again, a very similar pattern. Maybe not as mild in the longer term, but still a couple of degrees above average and more precipitation trend there. So perhaps keeping more of a westerly flow here, building that high pressure towards Europe. So a generally milder air mass, but perhaps that the drier air staying further eastwards than us. So yeah, the general trend is for quite unsettled stormy weather next week. So yeah, if you're looking for getting out over the course of this Christmas period from between Christmas Eve and New Year's Day, it does look likely it will be quite unsettled. There will be big bouts of precipitation, and most days will have the chance of heavy blustery showers. It will be quite wet out there, and it could be very windy at times. Again, we don't want to pinpoint at this stage because things can change, but it could look really quite stormy next week for a few days. Perhaps Wednesday to Friday time could see maybe a named storm mixed in there, but we'll have to wait and see exactly what the models do with these low pressure systems. After that, it does look very mild into the new year, so if you've got a look at any cold weather, probably 10th of January onwards at this stage from what I'm seeing here. Again, we looked at some of the longer range charts yesterday and they were indicating blocking would return into January, but again, it all depends on the jet stream and if the polar vortex in the stratosphere does take more of an influence over the course of the next few weeks. So anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.